Welcome to People Who Inspire. I'm your host, Mary Drelizak. My guest, Matt Huff, was 17 years old when he received a heart transplant. That was 7 years ago. Today, he's busier than ever spreading the word about congenital heart disease. We're going to learn a little bit about this disease and find out what's next for the CHD advocate and survivor. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for having me. How have you been?
I've been real good,
That's
real good. So tell us, what is congenital heart disease and why did you need a transplant?
Congenital heart defects are a birth defect within the heart. They actually don't know why kids are born with these. It's actually more rare than certain diseases. It's actually 1 in 100 kids are born with a congenital heart defect, and there's actually 36 different types of congenital heart defects. I thankfully only had one of them. I was born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. That's where the left side of the heart is underdeveloped, and so basically I only had the right side of my heart. So when I was born, they found out that I had that, and up until the age of 5, I went under and had 3 open heart surgeries, and then up until I was 16, I was, pretty good, like a normal kid, had a normal life and stuff, and then they found out I was in congenital heart failure, and I was actually on the list, the heart transplant list, for 1 year and 3 months, which led to me needing a heart transplant.
How did they find out that things were changing for you and you were going to need that? Were you doing anything and felt different?
So I actually started, it was around when I was, like I said, 16 years old. I kind of just started getting like chest pains where my heart was, and my breathing, it would get harder to breathe, and I couldn't do certain things. At first they didn't think it was heart failure, so they didn't treat it like that. So I actually went under testing for about 1 year just to find out what it was, and then they decided to treat it as heart failure, and that's how they finally found it.
Okay, all right. So you were a senior at Southmoreland High School when you had your transplant.
Yeah,
so,
I actually graduated before, and then I had it.
Okay, all right, very good. How did you process the news that you would need a transplant? What was going through your mind?
I actually still remember that day like it was yesterday. When I went into the hospital, when they wanted to treat it as heart failure, I was there for 2 weeks, and the day they were letting me go, the doctors usually round together and come in and see you in the morning, but it was just a little weird. My cardiologist, Dr. Brian Feingold, came in by himself and pulled up a chair and asked me how I was doing, and we just making conversation, and he just kind of said, I want to let you know you're in congenital heart failure and you're going to need a heart transplant. And when he said that, I'm just like sitting there like across from him, and my whole world kind of stopped. Like, I don't know what to think. I'm 16 years old and you're telling me I'm gonna need a heart transplant. So it was pretty, I'll admit it was scary because you're not sure what's gonna happen. But in that 60 seconds, I processed it and I just went on with my day. You just gotta keep going.
Just accepted it. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Oh. So tell us what your senior year, you were in the hospital your senior year.
So yeah.
What did your senior year look like?
So my senior year, it wasn't your typical, last year for a senior. I was in and out of the hospital. I had to get treatments because I had these things called antibodies, and they tried to get rid of them so that when I would get the transplant, I wouldn't reject it as soon as I got it. But I made the best of my senior year, even though I probably wasn't there even a full month throughout the entire year. I still hung out with my friends, went to class, did all the senior stuff. I went to prom, all that kind of stuff.
Good.
So you make the best of it.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you were able to do that. Do you know who your donor was?
I do not know, but I do know that it was a male, and he was around my age, and they said it could be like in the area from that person. So it could have came from somebody in Pittsburgh, New York, so around in this area.
Okay. How does that make you feel to know that somebody did that for you?
I get to wake up every morning. It will be 7 years now since I had my heart transplant. So I just like to think that I have, 7 more years and hopefully many more. I wrote letters to the family or whoever that person, their family would have been, just hoping to meet them one day. I'd just like to thank them personally for letting that person sign up to be an organ donor.
Did you do that through, is it CORE?
Yeah,
Center for Organ?
Yeah, okay. So it is through CORE. You have to write a letter. You can explain yourself, your hobbies, and then they, look at it and they'll reach out to the family. Or if they want to reach out, it'll still go through them.
That's nice.
So.
They got that. At least they got your message.
Yeah.
That was important. I'm sure it meant the world to them.
Oh yeah, I mean it would mean a lot more if I got to say, thank you in person. But
yes.
I'm just glad I'm able to write a letter to someone.
That's right. That's wonderful. All right. So let's talk about your mindset. You mentioned you just, you got that, you processed it in 60 seconds, and you just kind of, had to accept it. But how did you stay upbeat during all that time that you were in the hospital?
So when I was in the hospital, like I had it at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. You have these. It's not just like any hospital. I mean, I like to say Children's Hospital is like the most magical place. You could go to a hospital. Some people might think that's strange, but for a children's hospital, it truly is amazing because you have like art therapy, you have child life, you have music therapy, and it's just nice. Even at Children's, like your doctors will interact with you. It's not just like, I'm here to check up on you, okay, see you later. They actually come out, hang out with you. You have your social workers. It's actually nice, my social worker, we're still like very close friends. When I was at the hospital staying, he'd come down into my room, hang out. We'd play video games, stuff like that. Even my doctors would do that. So they're always making sure like it's not a hospital mindset. You're with like family, friends, and people who just truly care about you.
That's nice. Because you were in the hospital for like 42 days before your transplant?
Yeah, 42 days straight. Okay. I had to wait.
So you were waiting. So every day you were waiting. You didn't know if it would be another day or another week.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And especially for a young adult teenager mindset, I will say, even though you had all those people, each day wasn't the best, but you tried to make it the best, even if it was your worst day in that hospital. They made sure that you weren't thinking about it. So that's what really got me through it.
That's good. Children's Hospital, yay, yay. Well, during your stay there, you also made a couple of friends with WDVE Radio.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Who were they?
So it's actually funny about how this story goes. It was 2 weeks prior to my transplant. We were down in the atrium, me and my child life specialist, Lauren, and back then they had that thing where you like painted rocks and stuff, and I was sitting down there painting one, and this gentleman comes over and asks what I'm in there for, how you doing and stuff like that, and I kind of like didn't really take the mindset of acknowledging who he was because I didn't know who he was at the time. And 2 weeks after my transplant, the day before I was supposed to leave, I get a text message and said, "Hey, this is Randy Bauman from DVE. He's like, I was gonna see if you'd want to come on the radio with us in the morning and stuff like that." And I still had no idea who this person was until I told my parents, and they're like, my dad was like just super excited, and now so Randy Bauman and Bill Crawford, we've actually been like close friends for 7 years now. So they'll call me, or if I call them, they're like, "Hey, do you want to come on the radio?" And just hang out. I do movie reviews for them. So.
Do you do movie reviews?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first time you went on, so we'll get to that. The first time you went on, they said, "Hey, you want to come on?" What did you talk about?
We talked about my transplant and just like what kind of stuff I like to do outside of the hospital, what it's like in the hospital, and just how I want to say like organ donations changed my life, which it has greatly. And I mean, I'm just a big advocate for all of this. So when I do get to go on, that's like one of the biggest things I talk about on there.
Very good. Now let's talk about the movie reviews. How did that come about, and what does that look like for you?
So that kind of came about when, the first time I was on the radio, they were asking me like, what do you like to do? And, I told them I love watching the Marvel movies and the DC movies. And after we were done with the show that morning at Radiothon, Bill and Randy's like, here's our numbers. They're like, if you'd ever want to like come on and do like movie reviews for us, they're like, we'd love to have you. And I think it was about a month or two later, a new movie came out, and Randy reached out to me and asked if I'd want to come down, and that's kind of just how it's been ever since. So
that's fun.
It's just, and those two do so much for the hospital. I mean, they're just two great guys.
Right.
Like
the fact that they were even there that day when it was rock painting time, were they there for that, or were they there for something?
They were actually kind of just setting up Radiothon, getting their meetings and stuff like that for the 2 weeks after.
Very nice. Well, you made an impression, so that's pretty darn nice.
Yeah, I kind of got lucky getting my transplant at that time, and,
that's awesome.
Painting some rocks, I guess.
That's awesome. So a lot of good can come out of the things that are sometimes the scariest, but that's wonderful. So you were recently chosen to be an ambassador for a national nonprofit called Conquering CHD.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What do you do? Who are they?
So Conquering CHD, they're one of the biggest nonprofits in the U.S. In 2013 to 2014, I want to say, they branched off from the American Heart Association and became their own thing. So that's where they came up with the name, Conquering CHD. So the way I found out about them is through an Instagram post. I've always followed them, but then they had this thing, it's new this year for heart ambassadors, and you had to fill out an application, and you had to be related or involved in the heart community somehow. So I filled out the application, and I got picked out of 140 people. So that's how I got to be a heart ambassador this year.
Okay, so as a heart ambassador, what does that look like? What does that mean?
So this year, to be a heart ambassador, you had to make your own fundraiser. So they had these different tiers you could get prizes for, and the top prize was to attend their annual conference at DC at Capitol Hill. And like I said, you had to be the top fundraiser, over $3,000. And for being my first year doing something like this, I'm just very surprised and happy at where I ended fundraising.
So you made it to the top tier.
I was the #1 fundraiser. I ended at $8,052.
My goodness,
Yeah,
you more than doubled that top goal. How'd you do it?
So I actually started 2 weeks early. You didn't have to start until February, but I wasn't really sure how I was going to raise this money. I knew social media, and my family and friends are going to be like #1. So I kind of just, once I realized I got it that night, I got on the phone and I called Randy up, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to need to come on the radio like tomorrow morning. And he's like, for what? I'm like, I'll explain in the morning. And we put it out on the radio, and in 12 hours, well, it was a little before 12 hours, we raised $1,000.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Gee whiz, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I just want to thank everybody who's supported me with this and continuing to support me.
That's awesome.
So,
it's wonderful that you have this platform too. So how did you raise the other $7,000?
So I did it through my old high school and middle school.
Southmoreland.
Yeah. They, on Valentine's Day, they did a Wear Red Day and a hat day for the kids, and a dress down day, so the teachers got to wear jeans and stuff like that. And through my churches and social media. So another way that helped me was on social media. When you're a heart ambassador, you had to, it was a month thing, you had to post a post every day about your life, and each day was a different saying. So for example, one day was heart mom, heart dad, so I'd post a picture of my mom, my dad, and then just give a little background about each thing to help out. So,
that's awesome. That's awesome. And what did your church do? How did they raise the money for you?
So my church and the other church associated with us, they did offering on Sunday,
nice.
and I want to say each one raised about like $800.
That's amazing.
I just want to say thank you to them also.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you mentioned your mom and your dad, and so in the mix of all this, you know, how just speak to a minute about their support or their.
Oh yeah. So like my parents, I definitely wouldn't be here without them right now. They have always been by my side. When I was waiting on my transplant, and you know, going back to children's real quick, I mean, I want to say like I'm glad we have this at the hospital where they were able to spend, you know, the night with me. I mean, even though, you know, being a 16-year-old kid, I mean, it can be scary. So it's good to have them there. My mom, she took off work. She was there every day. Like if she wasn't there, my dad was there. So I mean, they're a big part of my life, and I just want to say thank you to them for, you know, helping me throughout my entire life.
That's wonderful. Awesome parents. So your fundraising earned you a top spot and got you a seat at the conference, and also to be able to advocate at Capitol Hill. Let's talk about the conference part. What did that look like for you?
So that was a big thing for me. First off, I just want to say, you know, I'm 25, and then, you know, 7 years now. If I could go back and tell myself before I got my transplant that I'd be here, I definitely would not believe like where I've come right now. So it's been a crazy ride. But the conference was definitely you know, different. It was the political side of all of the congenital heart side of stuff. I never realized how much, you know, politics go into this, on how the, you know, senators and congressmen have to pass these bills just for funding and research for all of this stuff. So it was very eye-opening, I will say. And I just want to like say, like, I'm glad I got that opportunity to see these things, because even though, you know, I'm just on the medical side, you know, the normal people who just see this, like, they don't get to see, you know, what really goes behind it that's put into this.
So the people that were attending the conference, who were they?
So it was
Were they medical professionals?
So yeah, we had doctors, nurses, advocates, heart patients, transplant patients, so all kinds of people affected in the heart world and, you know, community. And I met a lot of nice people. I actually, just from meeting one of these people down there, they asked me if I'd be interested in doing a research study with them. So I'm going to be doing that.
That's wonderful.
I mean, if I can help out in any way to for future, you know, kids not to have to go through this, I'm all for it.
Do you know what that'll look like yet?
The research study? Yeah, so for this one, I just have to fill out a couple forms, and then they would send me some things, and it's really neat. I didn't know this before. So when you get an organ, like we'll say a heart transplant, as you have it over the years, the cells go like into your body, and that's kind of like how rejection happens from it being in your body for so long. So they'll take like some blood and like some skin samples from me and stuff like that. I actually just did a research study the other day with Children's Hospital. They did an MRI of my brain and my heart, and it won't impact me at all, but they'll be able to detect rejection that way now through the brain with an MRI.
Oh,
so
that's fascinating.
It's very interesting what they can do, and that's why what this conference is all about, honestly.
Okay. And you get to share your story a little bit too while you were there? That's
so that was nice, you know, speaking to all of these people, which I never thought I'd be doing.
Going back to a second when you were in the hospital, how did you find out that the heart was there for you? Like what did that?
So I was, you know, waiting in the hospital when I got mine. It was, I remember this day like it was yesterday too. It was 6:30 in the morning, and I was sleeping in bed, and my nurse comes in and she's like, "You have a phone call," and I'm like, "Well, my phone's sitting over there," and she's like, "No, it's like on our phone. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I got on, it was Dr. Sean West, one of my transplant cardiologists. And he's like, Matthew, he's like, you know, we have a heart for you. You know, do you want it? You know, because just medically speaking, they have to ask you that in case you change your mind. And I'm like, no, I'm going to, you know, take it. And he's like, well, it's going to be a 50-50 chance. Because this one I got, they had to find the perfect one because going back to the antibody thing, my body would have just rejected it. But thankfully, it didn't. So they, like I said, they found the perfect one. Now, it took them 3 tries to start it, but that, you know, I like to say third time's a charm on that one.
Wow. So you must have been elated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But it's just like the world just come off your shoulders at that moment.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're about to go into a heart transplant surgery, but
yeah.
But wow, I got a
I
heart.
was like, I'm just glad it's, you know, done and over with.
Yes.
Well, not done and over with speaking that way, but one step out of the process
my gosh, yes.
was done.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. That's awesome. So as part of the conference, you also went to Capitol Hill to do advocacy for congenital heart disease.
Yeah.
So going to Capitol Hill.
That was a big one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be seeing myself in D.C. Advocating on behalf of, you know, the heart community, but I will say, you know, it was a big thing for me, and I loved every part of it. Getting to, you know, tell my story to these senators and congressmen. You could just tell. Well, it wasn't that they were supposed to be there, but it was like their representatives. But still, like just telling them like what goes on and a day in the life of somebody waiting, you know, and congenital heart failure. You know, you don't know if you're going to get that next day because you're waiting on this organ. You could just like tell in their face like that we really touched them and that they are considering, and most of them are already on our side to pass the bill. So.
And tell me a little bit about the bill and it was particularly about one bill that you were meeting with them about. Okay.
So it's called the Congenital Heart Defect Reauthorization Act of 2024. So right now we're sitting at $8.25 million, and we're asking to be fully funded at $10 million. So right now we'll know by the end of the fiscal year if it's passed. So we're hoping to hear something by September. But no, it's just crazy. Like I said, how much money is needed for this, and that money will go for research, medical equipment, and just stuff for the families and kids, you know, waiting and in the heart community.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Glad that you had that opportunity. My goodness. So now that you're back, what's next? What are you involved in?
So I'm still working with Conquering CHD. I'm actually on 2 of their committees. I'm on the Lifelong Transition Committee, but I'm also working with Children's Hospital. I'm on a committee with them just for the 7A heart floor. So we're just trying to find better ways for like the kids and the families to do stuff more and just, you know, bring more things to them.
That's good. So you're a voice in that, in those committees to move things forward.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful.
So it's you know, kind of an honor to be picked for these kind of things.
Yes, it is.
So
yes, it is. And this committee work just in the last year started, or? So
I just joined with the Conquering CHD within the last 3 months.
Yeah.
And then for the hospital, I've been on for about a year now.
That's nice.
So, yeah.
That's nice. Wow. It's nice to be on this end working forward.
So it makes me feel like I guess I am kind of, you know, making a difference.
You are.
So.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Tell me what else, or something else you're working on.
So yeah, I'm actually working on with a recently good friend of mine. He's actually my boss. We're working on opening a nonprofit together for congenital heart defects.
Wow.
And actually, we just made an appointment the other day. We're going to be speaking to an attorney on the 10th to get some of the paperwork filed and stuff like that. So
wow.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this for ever since I had my heart transplant.
And what would the foundation do?
So we would just be working within the heart community for the kids on 7A at Children's Hospital. That's the heart floor. So we would, whatever they need, we'd fund it. If they needed paid for parking, we'd pay for their parking. Food, we got them. Anything the kids wanted, we'd make sure they had it. So just, really looking out for them, because sometimes I just feel like, the heart community, I don't like to say gets pushed to the back burner, but sometimes I feel like it's overlooked. So I just like to make sure, they're cared for at the hospital.
So kids with congenital heart disease or other heart issues that are on that floor.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of speak to that for a second. So you're in the hospital a lot, and so you experience what those needs would be. And I'm sure your parents did too. You mentioned the traveling there, food. Like what do parents do when they're with you all day and all night and they have to eat?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, it's nice you get the hospital food for free, but
oh, that's nice.
I feel like me personally, after a while, it got a little tiring. So it's nice that I had my parents. My mom would go home, even though she'd be staying there, she'd go home, cook dinner, and then bring me some.
Yeah.
So I know, like, kids and families staying there, they don't have that. So I like to do that kind of stuff for them.
Right, very good. So the nonprofit will support the kids in 7A and their families.
Yeah, and the CICU, the cardiac intensive care unit.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
And when do you think that'll get up and running?
We're hoping by the end of summer to have everything legally done.
Wow.
So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Well, so that's really exciting. So to keep up with all the things that you're doing in your nonprofit when it comes to be very soon, where can we find you on social media?
So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So thankfully, my boss, who's my business partner, he has a degree in marketing, and so that he's going to be our marketer, and
nice.
So he'll be handling all the social media aspects. So
that's nice.
That's nice that we kind of get along with that. So.
Yes. Will you end up having a website?
Yeah, he's actually in the works of making one right now.
That's nice. That's very exciting. Boy, that's awesome.
Yeah, we have a lot of ideas we're going to be bringing to the table to help raise money for congenital heart defects.
That's right. And I know that you went through it, and just if you could speak more, like one more word about why this is so important. Important to you as well.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said at the beginning, like, congenital heart defects is, 1 in 100. There's 36 different types. I mean, just from my point of view, I got lucky. I only, got 1 out of the 36, but it means a lot, that I have family, friends, and just a great community, because there's some people who have a congenital heart defect that they don't have the support I do. So that's why, once I realized, when I got old enough, what a congenital heart defect was, and that's what I had, and then, I had to have an organ transplant. I just want to make sure the people that are affected by this, they have this, even though they're not family and friends, but they have the same support as I got in my life.
That's good. Well, thank you for being a voice and an advocate for something that you went through. Now you're turning that around and making a difference for others.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Matt.
No, thank you for having me.
Thanks for sharing your story.
I appreciate it.
All right. Matt is using his experience and his passion to make a difference, not only for the kids and their families navigating congenital heart disease, but also for the funding of research to find a cure. He's not on this journey alone. As the Beatles song goes, I get by with a little help from my friends. And so does Matt. As he discovered too, sometimes the very thing you're going through is the very thing you can use to make a difference in someone's life. The very thing that fills your life with purpose. If you'd like to find out more about congenital heart disease, connect with Matt or visit conqueringchd.org. Thanks so much for being with us.